Learning Ally is a proud sponsor of the Empowered Dyslexia podcast. Learning Ally, a nonprofit education organization, helps to transform the lives of struggling learners by delivering proven solutions that help students reach their potential. We have a heritage of supporting students with a reading deficit like dyslexia. Our award-winning human-read audiobook solution helps students in grades 3 through 12 access books they want and need to read to help them succeed. Visit www.learningally.org for more information.
The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional legal advice, medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your attorney, advocate, physician, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding any medical or educational concerns.
Hello and welcome to Empowered Dyslexia. I'm your host, Stephen Yearout, and on this show, we're here to help you become a better partner in education. On this show, we also speak about dyslexia and other related disorders. We speak about intervention, we speak about research, we speak about special education policy at the local, state, and federal level. And, you know, my favorite part is we speak to those of us with personal stories about dyslexia and learning disabilities and our struggles and what is really going on out in your world. I mean, it means so much to understand what your perspective and what you're going through. I mean, the stories are all the same. They mean so much because we need to hear them. We need to understand how do we stop this progression or this constant turning of this same story. I want to make sure that we always ask that you like us, subscribe, and leave us a comment. We love to know how we're doing. If you like to watch it, obviously you're going to be on Facebook Live or YouTube Live. And as you can see here, I mean, we are on every platform where you're going to get your listening podcasts. I mean, this is amazing to me. Every time I see that slide, I'm so honored that this is where it's gone in such a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. You know, that tells me something. That tells me that, you know, this is so needed. We need that support. Today, this topic is about, the topic is the same name as a good friend of mine's book. And it's Lead with L.O.V.E. He's a returning guest. And I would say he's a returning special guest because he's definitely a special person. And he's my brother from another mother.
Absolutely.
Spencer Conley.
Man, Steve, man, thanks for having me and to consider me a return guest and to be a brother from another mother. You know, I don't take things like that lightly just because it rhymes or maybe it sounds cool. The the necessity in what you're doing for me feels absolutely amazing. Understand how lonely the world can seem at times. So we're talking 1 out of 5. So then you got 4 people that are looking at you that don't understand you. And then you're talking 4 out of 20. Now 16 people are looking at you and don't understand you. And so it becomes very difficult. And the world can be a lonely place in being able to live this long, learn workarounds, come up with different ways, still battle and end up finding myself successful versus being in jail, right? From the frustration that the dyslexia can cause at times, because it takes nothing for an accident to happen and your life to change just out of being frustrated, right?
Yeah, it's a thread, and people don't understand that. It's the distance between being a statistic and being successful, especially where we were coming from, is a thread.
It's a thread. It's a thread.
You know, when I was in school, we always had this poster on the wall. It was of a cat, and it was you remember the gym ropes that hung from the ceiling? It says, when you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on.
Right.
And it's a cat holding on to a rope. And for our population, brother, we've been holding on to that knot for a long time, right?
For a long time. And then you look at that, your platform, you know, even though it's a long time, we're trying to play catch up, which is providing several opportunities for people to have awareness, you know. So what it's showing is, even if you don't have dyslexia, there's someone around you that you love that does. And so it should be
so hold on, say that again.
If you don't have dyslexia, which is where people blow things off. You know what I mean? Even if you don't have dyslexia, it's proven you have someone around you that does. That
statement is so powerful.
Well, we open up with that. Yeah. We open up with that. If out of 20 people, 4 of them are dyslexic.
So let me throw this at you, right? So you're saying 1 out of 5.
Right.
In my family, it's 3 out of 5.
Look at that.
So in most families I know that have multiple people in that family,
absolutely,
they don't run in the 1 in 5.
Right. And so now you have them all together that don't know what's going on, still trying to figure it out. You know, and they say if one parent is dyslexic, there's a 50-50 chance. If both are, it's 100%. So then after every kid, there's a 50-50 chance. So it's easy to where there could be 3 out of 5. And that's amazing.
So you were before the show started, we were sitting here having a discussion, and you were talking about how, you know, there are these people that don't understand us. And the message that we're trying to get out is we're trying to get this message out like the bus is on fire, right?
Right.
Because it's so important to get this out now, because there's so many people that are holding on to that thread.
Right.
They're hanging by that knot. You know, they're holding on for dear life. But what we need to, I completely lost my train of thought. I'll edit that out. When we are looking back at that 1 in 5, or that people don't understand us, we have to make sure that this message gets out now. Why? Not for us.
Right.
Not even necessarily for our kids. So get this.
Right.
We're going to have grandkids and great grandkids, and generations
and other people
that come, that are going to have dyslexia. I want to make sure they don't struggle like we did.
Right. And they can know as fast as they have an opportunity. And I want to say this, Steve, to parents who are possibly listening, or loved ones who know people with dyslexia who are possibly listening. I want to get this straight, because it seems like there's a fear of sometimes them doing something about it. Listen, your child or loved one is not terminally ill, stop treating them like that. You know what I mean? I didn't want people to cater to me or baby me because I had dyslexia. I wanted to know what was going on, to understand, so I knew how to move and understand if there was workarounds, if there's a different way that I need to focus on reading. Like, we tried it all, to use a ruler for one line, and stuff like that to keep me focused on one line. Those things didn't work to me. I wanted understanding. Right? And we have to have more than that, because people are still going out there marrying dyslexics, you're hiring dyslexics. And I found that people will do and invest in anything that they want to invest in. Right? And so understanding that there's someone in your circle that's dyslexic that you love, you should want to understand it. You see what I mean? When you got with your wife in the beginning, you were trying to find out as much as you could about her. To please her, to make her happy, to meet her where she was, to be a comfort. You have to spend time. You have to want to know that information. The same way you want to know about where you can get discounts on shopping for expensive purses. The same way you want to get all the information you can get on hunting and fishing equipment. People invest in what they want to invest in. In our country, we don't invest that much in our neighbor anymore. We don't. In understanding one another anymore. If you don't have anything that I can use right now, it doesn't matter. And then when you look at the small numbers with dyslexia, that's why they keep counting us out. And I don't understand. In some ways, Steve, when it comes to human beings, I don't think anybody should be counted out. This is why we have such a struggle right now in our country, because nobody listens to the minority. You know what I mean? Our Native American mindset, they should have tons of contribution to how our country functions and flows in being here since the beginning. Well, they're too small in numbers for their vote to really even matter for some people to even consider or care about what they have to say. So, and in that way, I can kind of understand and it helps me relate to other cultures, to other small people, to small business, to just different things that definitely America should be better about, and we're not, because we have so many different cultures and backgrounds in here. When you have that, we should be getting to know one another. And in the middle of that, I find out that you're dyslexic because you're raising dyslexic children. Okay, tell me more about that. What is that to be dyslexic? I've heard it and never had the courage to ask, but I have a relationship with you, so I want to ask because I care about you and I want to know, what is that? We should do more of that, not just with dyslexia, just with, okay, listen, man, I just happen to notice white folks always do this. What is y'all fascination with pumpkin pie, and black folks, we love sweet potato pie? What is the difference? Just start the conversation.
So you know why that conversation doesn't happen a lot?
Why is that?
It's fear.
Fear of what?
Fear of, well, what are they going to think of me if I ask that question? Fear of having that, what they perceive as a difficult conversation. But I'm going to take this back into something that you were talking about in your book. Lead with L.O.V.E.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a piece in that book that you start talking about finishing people's sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're having a conversation with somebody, are you just waiting to talk and get your point out? Or are you waiting to... are you really listening to what they're saying?
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm listening to this book, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking there's two things that I'm getting out of this. Number one, does the person that you're talking to, does your friend, does your family member, does your business partner or your acquaintance, do they know as much about you as you know about them? Or do you know as much about them as they know about you?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't know, if you don't know as much about them as they know about you, that means you're talking too much.
Right.
And you don't love them. You don't care enough to shut up and listen to what they're saying, because they're going to tell you what's on their heart. They're going to tell you how to have that conversation.
And it should matter, because even if the things that are on their heart don't mean anything to you and I.
But they should,
It
because
means something to you, so it should mean something to me. It means something to you. There's a whole lot of things that I don't understand that I'm fascinated by. Like science is one of them. I'm fascinated by it, but I'm not so fascinated to where it's like I'm just stuck in gun-ho science. I'm fascinated about listening and seeing and hearing it and learning it. Right? Man,
absorbing that information.
Right. Absolutely.
But when I come to you and I have to ask that question, hey, why do black folks like pumpkin pie and I like this, or sweet potato pie and I like pumpkin pie? When I come, it's crazy that you brought this up because I had this conversation earlier this week. When I come at that conversation with L.O.V.E, that's not a hard conversation.
Absolutely.
You know I love you. You know I care about you.
Absolutely.
You know. And if we treat everybody this way.
Beautiful. And here's the thing. With you being a husband and father, Steve, you know that you've made several decisions that you did out of love that made a lot of people unhappy. And you can't focus on that because that is still love. Son, no. Daughter, no. Wife, no. Sometimes just hearing that word no matter how nice you say it, when people don't want to hear it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can't say no nice enough when somebody doesn't want to hear no. And so you're used to making those decisions out of love. I'm saying this not to be popular, but I'm saying this to establish that I love you. Those are two different things. And then some people would rather be popular than to do things out of love. And we have just a struggle with the understanding. We still have parents who are ignorant. My parents knew because teachers and principals and counselors shared with them, but it wasn't detailed. So going through high school and middle school, we knew that it was something. But just think about all that time that we knew that was something, not knowing what it was. We were never able to fix the frustration and the pain. Just being able to understand that. Wow, he's dyslexic. And so that and everybody has their struggle or story with that. And
we don't realize that by fixing the frustration with that child, how that spiders out and touches so many other people's lives and changes frustrations in their life.
Absolutely.
So that's the reason why when I did the show with my mom, I talked about dyslexia is stealing my life. Because there is truth to that. When you go back and you look at what is possible, the remediation that's possible, the support that's not given, and how that tidal waves into every aspect of your life, not just school. It doesn't, the frustration and the anxiety and depression and anger doesn't stop at the schoolhouse, right?
Yeah.
It tidal waves over into your family life, into your personal life, into your friends, into your acquaintances, everybody that you come in contact with, it flows over onto them.
Right.
So by us understanding and supporting not only the parents, the teachers, and most importantly, that precious little baby that needs to have this education, that is thriving for this education.
And when you say education, let me say something else, especially at our age and, coming up on 50 in a couple years. We don't talk enough, when getting married, right? Kim and I should have talked. We didn't, but we understand now. We should have talked about family medical history, right? So if you're going to start a family with somebody, it's not to judge, it's to be prepared, because now I have to raise kids with that. So, you know what I mean? On both sides of my family, diabetes is an issue. So understanding that knowing that helps me to prepare how I'm going to raise my kids. I need to make sure that they're involved in everything that helps a diabetic. So I can't have kids that are just stuck to video games, because physical activity helps diabetes, right? So I need to make sure that my kids are buying into that and find some level of physical activity that they love. So it just comes from not knowing. So me not knowing that my grandmother was a diabetic, but not knowing what diabetes is because I'm young.
Thank you.
I should have that education. So my whole family functioned like it was just my grandmother's problem. And it wasn't. So we don't do this in a whole lot of areas in certain homes. We don't do it when it comes to politics. We don't do it when it comes to managing money. We don't. So it helps me understand how being a dyslexic gets pushed back, because we do it every other place in life. We just sit and hope that we don't have cancer and that my wife doesn't have breast. We all struggle with asking difficult questions that shouldn't be difficult. It should be part of it. I'm not saying that I'm not going to marry you because you have heart disease history in your family, but at least now we're aware and we understand that you, the kids, need to constantly get checkups. I'm not saying I'm not going to marry you because you're dyslexic or because you're diabetic. Those conversations need to be had for understanding to succeed.
So I love the point that you're talking about your family treated diabetes like it was just your grandmother. And you knew that your grandmother had diabetes, and you have the possibility to have diabetes, but you don't know what diabetes is.
Even at that time, being black, right? All they called it was sugar. So like, all I know is that I put sugar on my cereal. We put sugar in Kool-Aid. Sugar. In my mind, it never connected me to a disorder, to diabetes wearing down your organs, right? And that it speeds up, right? You see what I mean? All the things that really matter about diabetes, I wasn't educated on that.
Right. I was having this, and I love when these type of conversations happen, because I was having this exact conversation Friday, and I was saying, even at, how old was I? I was, 42. Mm-hmm. Dealt with dyslexia my entire life. Thought I knew what dyslexia was, right? But until my child got it, I didn't understand it. Mm-hmm. Until my child got it, I then went and learned what dyslexia was truly for the first time for myself. Right. So it's the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? This is my grandmother's diabetes, or I got diabetes and I don't even know what diabetes is.
Other than that look that you give everybody when you're upset.
Yeah.
So for your wife to say, in the kids, you get that from your dad. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is, let's see what else he gets from dad or his granddad or his great granddad. Let's investigate everything else that these young babies could be attached to and prepare them. We don't do that. And
we know that dyslexia is hereditary.
Right.
Right?
Right. And so can diabetes, and so can cancer. See, those are the only places that we look at those things at right now. We only look at it right there. There's so much more that we need to be educated on, but we just put our heads in the sand and hope. I hope I don't have cancer. I hope we don't have testicular cancer. I hope you don't have diabetes. We just hope and hope and hope instead of functioning on prevention. But we have prevention when it comes to losing money.
Yep. So let's take this back to your book, right?
Absolutely.
So leaders, lead with L-O-V-E, leaders are also going to bring that education. They have to make sure that they're educated first. They understand the path that you're fixing to go down. When you're dyslexic and you marry that dyslexic, you need to understand what is in front of you. You need to understand that roadmap, so when your child is ready to start education, that you already are taking those steps to make sure that you're doing those things properly. Leaders are educated and they never stop learning.
Right. Good ones.
I say good ones. Well, we all should never stop learning. We should all be teachable.
But there's just something about society and people getting to a place to where they feel like they've arrived. So and when you get to that place, you stop. You feel like you're at this place. I got 20 years. I don't need to do anymore. I don't need to learn. I don't need to do this. I'm a senior citizen. I have no more to give. Just help me across the street. Do this, do that. Like all those things are great. But if you're living and breathing and you can communicate, you still have something to give to humanity, right?
Always.
Which is to continue to learn, continue to push the bar and to gain understanding. Because everybody's not going to function. Like, I don't even know. I know that me and you understand each other, but I know because dyslexia have different severities that the way you and I came up with coping mechanisms, they might not, me and you might not even be able to share that and understand it because it's so amazing within every different dyslexic. The way, we come up with how we cope and how we manage certain things. You couldn't even give me your blueprint and it works for me. I might not be able to give you mine and it works for you.
Well, and I think that we talk about coping, and I think that we make two things. Number one, instead of, I think the word coping is more of a mask. Mm-hmm. We build this mask,
right,
to shield what other people see from us or about us. So that dyslexia, although I've talked about it my entire life, is, school career, whatever, I still didn't even know what it was.
Right.
But I wanted to make sure that if people saw me struggling, that they already knew that, hey, that was the issue. Mm-hmm. And they didn't just look at me and immediately go, he's just dumb.
Right.
Right? But we need to make sure that we are open, honest, and constantly having those conversations.
Yeah.
Because as you were saying, the blueprint, right? A lot of it is done out of survival.
Right.
So these, I know I'm probably going to upset some people with this comment, and I'm not meaning it to upset anybody, but when we start talking about dyslexics learning a certain way or a superpower or, this, that, or the other, I look at it as I had to build those skills out of survival for the element that I was put in,
right,
which was education. I had to build those listening comprehension and listening skills to such a high level that it looks like a superpower.
Right. And it's amazing because you don't have as many lefties as you do righties. So, and I'm dyslexic and also left-handed, but there wasn't as many issues about me being left-handed as there is with me being dyslexic. Like, okay, they're just different like that. But just really understanding, like it was, my wife thought she knew, Kim thought she understood until she watched me read. Then it was just like, man, I don't know how you went your whole life, reading like that and how you get information. And, so it's something different.
Yeah, it's building that skill out of survival, right?
Mm-hmm. And watch this, even when I wrote my book, now I honestly did want my book written very easy, one, so it could be a fast read and be practical, and so practical to where you're not so much focused on the words that are being used, but how you apply what's being said. Make it much more easier. So when I started dealing with my lawyer, Steve Foster, and we're working on proposals and whatnot for the nonprofit, and Steve would have words written in there that I didn't understand. So we had two issues. Either he could teach me the words, or the proposal needs to be written to where I understand everything that's in it. So it was the step up he didn't change it. When he walked me through the proposal, he explained to me every word that was in there that I didn't understand, or that I don't use. So you can imagine a lawyer using a vocabulary that could be beyond me when it comes to words that I just don't use every day. But this is how I was able to strengthen my vocabulary, by staying around people like Steve. I could have just stayed there and said, nope, I don't care, Steve. Whenever you write a proposal that has to do with me, it needs to be done with just words that I understand.
So, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry to interrupt
it's
you,
okay.
but I want to make this point. So, I want people to hear what you're talking about, right? So you're talking about now how old were you when you were writing that book?
I'm 47, so just 3 years. It's been out 3 years.
Okay, so
yeah.
So 3 years ago, as an adult, you're still feeling those effects from not having the vocabulary. And why didn't you have the vocabulary? Because you were not allowed access to those vocabulary. That you were not allowed access to the information, whether it's through audiobook or whatever. So your vocabulary wasn't able to be built like that.
Absolutely.
And that is one of the things that we fight so hard for on this show and right now, is making sure that we give everybody the access to understand those vocabulary words and get exposed to them.
Yeah, and it was amazing to me. So where he continued to do that, when we're sitting at the table walking through those things, it's amazing, because now he's teaching me, not knowing it, on my platform. All you got to do is show me one time. So when we're rolling through the proposal, he'll say, okay, this is what this means. So when you see this from here, that's my platform. Once I see something or hear it, I don't forget it. So he didn't even understand that he was teaching me from my platform. What he did was, he wasn't going to rewrite the proposal. I'm going to educate Spencer on what's in this, because this is the language that's used with what we're doing here, and you need to understand that. You can't completely customize everything to yourself. You have to grow. And then that became another opportunity for me to grow, even though he didn't understand what he was teaching me, because I was just like, hey, that wouldn't be there. That wouldn't be there. I don't understand that. And I don't want words written in something that's a legal document that I don't understand. I want to be able to be held responsible for every word that's written about what people are expecting me to perform or what I'm committing myself to. So instead of doing that, he pushed me to continue to grow.
So we take that back to education. We take that back to the sixth grader or seventh grader or fourth grader that's sitting in class, and they don't understand what the teacher's saying. They don't understand the words that they're reading. We got to make sure that they understand it. We got to make sure that they're exposed to those words earlier and earlier, so they understand, they have that vocabulary.
And here's the tough thing.
Yeah.
And I can just speak for the Black community, and I'm sure, but I'm not white, so I know what I hear when I've coached kids, when I've evaluated them, when I watched them, when I've seen in my community. We have a big thing, and I now know that this is a lie, and I want to state this. And I've seen Black kids and other Black people and white people who are connected will understand this. We hear people say, man, why are you using big words? Stop using big words. It's not that the word is big, it's just that you don't understand it, number one. Number two, know when there's a word that nobody in your circle or your community uses, then you perceive that word to be bigger than you, and you'll call it big words. You understand that? So even with that, we're just wanting to keep things simple. Why are you using big words? You know what I mean? No matter what that would be, what I'm saying is, keep it simple so we all can function and understand, versus stepping up and extending your vocabulary. Like being Black, we would beat each other up for that. We would judge other people who had stronger vocabularies than the rest of us. And that should be something that should be celebrated. We should be able to learn from everybody, right? And I'm just thankful that I've had people around me that I was able to learn from, even though some of them judge me. You know what I mean? Some of them judge me because I wasn't afraid to ask questions. I have a great friend, and he's in Frisco here now. Maybe at some point we'll have him on. Phil Brown, played for the Vikings, was running back at Texas. Great friend of mine. He's a principal at one of the Frisco schools right now. And we played together and we were roommates. And I would constantly ask Phil questions. And he would look at me like, boy, you really needed football. You see what I mean? That's how I felt when I asked him a question, because it was almost like, damn, you don't know that? You know, so in my mind, Steve, I had to build myself up to where I know that I'm gonna get dogs for answering this question, but as soon as the faster they answer, the more I know. The faster they answer, the more I know. That's all I'm interested in, is getting and learning information. I would be in a bad place if I was dyslexic and then didn't have the courage to do this. Why do you think my damn shoulders are so big, bro? Because I didn't mind flying that thing when that one got tired. Hey. So now I understand, right? Everybody doesn't have that same confidence. And so we have to do better at recognizing these things younger and just continuing to encourage the education system. And it's the education system at the top. I think most teachers want to. I think most teachers, if they knew that they had a dyslexia, they could manage it. You know, they wouldn't feel like they're going crazy. Or if they knew what was going on with somebody, they could administer more help. You know, just like I think when I was coming up in the late 70s and 80s, they knew something, but the fact that you can't be detailed, you can't fix it. If I know something's wrong with your car and I can't figure out what's wrong with it, I can't fix it. You know, I can only administer help to my level of understanding. And so while the education system was dragging their feet, you have teachers beating up kids because they're extremely intelligent. And we weren't always at a place to where we recognized the difference between IQ and academic achievement. Everything was IQ. Oh, he's IQ, he's smart. Yes, he's smart, but he's still dyslexic. Yes, she's smart, but she's still dyslexic. Her learning platform is different from you. Smarts has nothing to do with academic achievement. You know, and we just need to, this is something that needs to be continued. And I always feel like, the fact that we're able to do this now, Steve, is because I see it in the public education system all the time. When the right or wrong person's kid has an issue, then things change. And I hate that the rest of the world has to wait for that, because we're built and we're set up off of money. So, and it is that way. Let the right rich kid have some issues. Let the right booster child or grandchild have some issues. Then everybody is going out of their way to fix those problems. You know, and I'm thankful that it opened the door for the awareness of where we are in understanding the differences between people and the things that we struggle with, you know? So,
you know, one of the things that I was I was getting out of what you were talking about, and a lot of times especially in the dyslexia community, we have a problem with labels.
Yeah.
People don't want to call it a disability. They don't want to call it dyslexia. They don't want to put a label to it. However, you would go back to your car analogy. You take your car to a mechanic and he walks out and says, oh yeah, I got to fix your car. Or I got to work on your car. I got to do something to your car. And you go, okay, what is it? And they just give you a price. Right. They don't tell you what it is. Are you going to accept that?
Yeah, well, you got a problem with labels. So what do you want me to tell you? We know it's broken. I have to fix it. Yeah. I can tell you, but tell you and for you to have a problem with it?
And when I say fix it, I know that there's going to be people that say, well, we're not broken. We don't need to be fixed. However, it's just like when I talk about the word disability, when I look at disability, now this is my own personal belief. When I look at the word disability, I don't have a problem with the word disability, because before I was remediated, before I went through therapy, when reading or spelling popped up in my life, so did my disability. That disability label or word doesn't mean that I'm invalid sitting in a corner. I can do lots of other things. However, when that particular activity shows up in my life, so does my disability. So let's get past all of that. The other thing I got out of your book, and I was thinking about this when I was getting ready today.
Mm-hmm.
In your book, you talk about having different definitions for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we all have different definitions for the same thing that we're talking about, we'll never be able to agree on how
to move forward
right?
Together, right.
So let me throw this at you. The first time dyslexia was talked about, understood, knew what it was, 1881.
Wow.
So
what you're saying becomes a disappointment to me, because when I look at how we wash clothes, how we transport, right? How we wear clothes, how we travel, how we eat, we are so far from the way we did that in 1881. Where we get educated at, how we get educated, being able to do it online, all this type of stuff. And then since 1881, and this is as far as we've gotten? Yeah, like there's a lot to just say to that. Like that's not, that's saying like that's amazing how you can have all those different platforms and the support that you're getting now, because since 1881, like that's we got a work cut out for us. Because mindsets have to change, establishments have to change. It's always good, Steve, with certain people for 1 out of 5 to be okay. Yeah, I lose 4 out of 20. I lose 4 eggs out of 20. That's still a good day. I lose 4 carrots out of 20. That's good collateral damage, bro. So the education system is looking at me, you, your children, and everybody else's children the same way. Because since 1881 or whatever, we haven't done a damn thing.
But so to take on your analogy, you lose 4 out of 20, somebody doesn't eat.
Absolutely.
Somebody doesn't eat.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Not everybody in the house gets the same amount.
Absolutely.
And we are choosing. So you talk about, well, there's a rich kid somewhere that once that rich kid, gets the support, or there'll be something changed once the right kids gets diagnosed with whatever. But how many kids are we going to allow to not be educated? We believe that they can't be educated is the problem.
Right.
I mean, let's call it what it is. We don't believe that they can truly be educated. I just have to believe that that's what it has to be if we're not any further along.
I believe the education system, Steve, is no different than big time college and professional ranking. And you understand this when you're evaluating a player. One of the first things you're going to do, no matter what the position is, do what? They want to know what? How fast you run the 40. You see what I'm saying? That's their weeding out process. You could be an amazing football player. And if you run on a clock and you do nothing like that when you play football, but that's their evaluating and part of their weeding out process and part of them saying, yes, you were amazing in college, but you came to the combine and ran a horrible 40, so this justifies us not paying you X amount of dollars for these first few years, and then you prove that you're a good ball player, as we think you are, even though you don't have this speed. There's a whole lot of them. Jerry Rice wasn't the fastest. Jerry Rice isn't faster than half the guys that are starting in the NFL nowadays. Neither was Steve Largent. So being a football player and running the 40 to me isn't a legitimate good measuring system, but they have to have one. I just think that they need to do better at it, as well as I think the education system needs to do better. When kids come into education, they should be evaluated. So then this way we understand faster how to serve and educate them. And we're not doing that. Sometimes a kid is already labeled a bad kid before anybody ever even realizes it's just struggling from dyslexia or home life.
But hear this: behavior is a symptom of a problem.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
So you talk about the scorecard that they have when you're evaluating a player. What does that look like for everybody else in life? What is that scorecard?
Right.
What's that scorecard when I come up to Spencer and go, Mr. Conley, I'd like a job. And I hand you my what?
Resume.
My scorecard.
Your scorecard. Yeah. Yeah.
My scorecard has to have all the right keywords. It has to have the right education. It has to have the right experience. And guess what? Now we send those off by email. They never see us. We don't get a combine. So your scorecard gets filed quicker and quicker. And one of the main things that they look at is education. Mm-hmm. So if you can't read, you can't spell,
and you struggle with it, yeah, yeah.
Wow. We only have a few more minutes, but I wrote down some things that I took out of your book too. In your book, I can't say enough about it.
Thank you.
I mean, you can attest to this. I started listening to your book, and I immediately called you after the first chapter. Mm-hmm. And I said, wow. I mean, just after the first chapter, there's so much information if you do one of the things that you talk about in this book, which is listen. Mm-hmm. Stop listening, or stop talking. Stop talking and hear my words. Really hear my word. And this really all ties back into dyslexia.
It does.
Right? It's words. They mean something.
Right.
They mean something to all of us. And I'm not saying the definition of the word, but words mean something.
Right.
We all remember
in one way or the other.
We all remember that teacher that said something, you're dumb, you're lazy, you're this.
Right.
Right? We all remember that person that called you fat or skinny or tall or whatever. Words mean something. So we have to listen more and stop talking as much.
Yes.
So one of the things you said in here, and I love it, degrees do not qualify you to lead. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they don't. They don't. And just we just really like to do that. Degrees, where you got your education, who you're connected to, especially when we're talking about people. Everybody with a lot of education can't lead people. Absolutely. They don't connect. A lot of people with a lot of education are introverts, and it's hard to lead people when you're not a people person.
It's hard to lead people when you don't care about them.
Or they don't, or perceive, or
they don't perceive.
Right. It seems like you don't care. Maybe the way you show it, your body language. And this is why it's so important with anything, but we function like we don't have time to do it. You have to build relationships.
Yep.
So I can say, dang, okay, Steve, I thought Steve was an introvert. He's really not. He's quiet. But once we built the relationship, wow, he talks, and then all that, those walls and the understanding goes up, and the other things go down, and it's a beautiful place when you connect and build relationships. You can't having degrees might work when you manage a warehouse of nothing but computers.
Yep.
But when you manage a warehouse of people,
yep.
And
the fact that there's a lot of different leaders, ones that lead from the back, ones that lead in the front, and there's ones that stand beside you.
Yeah.
But all of them do the same thing.
Right.
They take you from good to better to best.
Mm-hmm.
Or to
absolutely. Mm-hmm. To best. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh, I want to keep this conversation going. We're going to do
We'll continue it.
We're going to do a part 2 because there's so much more to unpack here.
Yeah.
My mind is blown. And Ziggy's over here going, man, would you shut up? Quit talking.
Hey.
Listen a little more. No. Spencer, thank you so much for coming on the show again. Man, I'm so honored to have you as a friend. I'm so honored. I'm honored to have you in my life.
It's the same
you bring
here,
so much,
man. Getting to know you, looking forward to getting to know your children better, and you know, and after meeting your wife, and just I'm honored to, okay, because you know a lot of things about me, and you know a lot of the people I know, and so with that, I'm honored the fact that it was pushed in you and birthed in you to do this, to provide an opportunity for education. And that's why that's one of the things I love about this day and age. Like, there's no excuses. Like, you're out there. There's other things that are out there for you to get an understanding and a level of awareness now. And then when we don't, that's sad.
Yep.
To be able to do this and ask anything and get information, and we don't attempt to do that to get understanding, man. And so I'm just so honored that you didn't take this platform on as a hobby. This is something that you're serious about, because you understand there's a lot of people hurting, and I understand that in any way that I can support, you know, empower this, because it took a while for you and I to become empowered. And so we understand that it was just survival mode. You know, I want to see other young people and young adults and parents get out of survival mode and just live. And it's okay for me to be a dyslexic. I'm okay. So, and it's not going to stop me from being the president. It's not going to stop you from being whatever it is that you want to be. Live your life and just feel good about who you are. You know, just that knowing, understanding. I think that did a lot for me, Steve. What did it do for you when you really understood? Okay, I got that.
It's life changing. Life changing. So be on the lookout for Lead with Love. I tell you what, I think that book is so important. I'm going to buy 10 copies of it, and I'm going to give them away.
Wow.
I'm going to give them away, and we'll pick some winners. I think it's so important for people to read this book and understand it. It's a short read, and it's a very important read, and I think it's too important to not share.
Man,
So-
we appreciate that, and love you, Steve.
Yeah.
We're gonna do the best that we can do.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna do
what
it.
we have to encourage
Absolutely.
and use our platforms to just bring awareness to.
Absolutely. So at the end of every show, you know, we like to recommend that if you believe that your child is struggling in school and there's a possibility that there is a learning disability, don't wait. Don't wait. We are running out of time. The clock is ticking. Please go to our website, www.empowerdyslexia.info, download the PDF, put your information in, turn it into the school system, and that starts the clock to getting your child tested and understanding what is going on. Making sure that you understand, how do we get my child to be the best version of themselves that they can be, that education. Again, you know, this is Dyslexia Awareness Month. I want to, every day in our house is Dyslexia Awareness Month. Like I said before, it's such an honor to do this show every week. And I thank each and every one of you for taking the time to support us, to listen, because this show's really our show. It's all of our shows. So we need to wrap it up. So until next time, we'll see you there. And here is a word from our sponsors.
Learning Ally is a proud sponsor of the Empowered Dyslexia podcast. At Learning Ally, we are always looking for new ways to engage readers struggling with a reading deficit like dyslexia and help them work to their potential. Visit www.learningally.org to learn about the Learning Ally audiobook solution, including which of your students are eligible for access. If you live in Texas, we have great news. The Texas Education Agency provides access to the Learning Ally audiobook solution for all K-12 public and charter school students with reading deficits. Get started today by visiting www.learningally.org/Texas.